Aloha mai kākou. O wau o Staysia ka ho'opome ka I Haleakala a o keia ko'u kupuna ana ke. What is your full name given to you at birth?
Vanessa and Medeiros.
And do you know how you were given those names?
Yes, actually, so my first name, Vanessa, was a character in a soap opera that my mom used to watch all the time. And the character's name was Vanessa Spalding, so I was named Vanessa. Mm-hmm. And my middle name, Anne, was the same middle name as my aunt, my mom's sister.
What soap opera was the title?
I believe it was A Guiding Light.
Oh, very interesting. Did you have any nicknames growing up?
No, but later on in life when I was working, so I worked at the tropical plantation for a little bit, and we all had to have Hawaiian names. So my friends gave me the Hawaiian name Kamele Onalani, which is music from heaven, because I used to sing.
Wow. When and where were you born?
On Maui, Wailuku. And when? Oh, that was important. That was in September of 1958.
What are your parents' names?
My parents' names. Okay, so my dad is Stanley Lewis Medeiros Sr. and my mom is Lorraine Vera Paiva Medeiros.
Could you tell me a little bit about your mom?
Yeah. So my mom was actually pretty adventurous, and like her parents, and her parents. My mom grew up in the World War II era, and so during that time you had to scrimp and scrape and save things, and so my mom was always making stuff out of something else. So clothes wires. She would use clothes wires, was the clothes hangers that was wire, and she would cut that up and make that into a hook to hook something up. Rather than going to the store and buying a hook, you could do those. So we learned a lot of that inventiveness from her, and putting things together so that you don't necessarily have to go to the store to go and buy things. You can make it from things you have at home. Recycling.
Do you have a favorite memory of you and your
mom? Well, my favorite memory actually involves your grandfather. He's my younger brother. And so back when we were kids, we spent a lot of time with our aunts and uncles and cousins, especially on Sundays. We would always do a Sunday drive into the country or somewhere. And I remember that we went to some pasture area to collect guavas, because my aunts used to make guava jam, right? So we went to this pasture to pick guavas. So it was my cousins and I. We had to climb over this wood gate to go in to pick the guavas. And at some point, one of my cousins comes running through the guavas and starts yelling, "Cow, cow, cow!" And everybody just stopped and ran to that gate to climb over the gate, because we don't know if it's a bull or what's going on, right? So we're running over the gate, and your grandfather, because he was very, very young and he couldn't climb over the gate, he was sticking his hands through the gate opening and going, "Get me out of here! Get me out of here!" And so one of the adults had to come and literally grab him and throw him on the top part so that he could get over the fence. So we're all either on the fence or on the other side of the fence waiting to see what's going to happen. And through the bushes, you can hear this rustling sound. Shh, shh, shh. And all of a sudden, in the opening, comes this little calf. And all of us started busting out laughing, right? Number one, because it was just a calf we were running from. But number two, because your grandfather was so serious about, "Get me out of here! Get me out of here!" His hand is through the opening. So that's one of my favorite memories.
That's so funny. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about your dad?
My dad was, I would call my dad sort of a G.I. Joe. So he was actually in the military for literally half his life. So when he passed away, he was 84, and he was in the military for 42 years. So both with the National Guard and then with the actual army. So he served in Vietnam.
Do you have a favorite memory of you and your dad?
Well, my dad played music, played guitar. We had some old pictures that he played years ago, many years ago, Carmen Miranda. So Carmen Miranda was a very famous actress from Brazil. Brazil, they speak Portuguese. And she came to Maui, and my dad was part of the group that played music for her when she came off the airplane. And he continued playing music. So we picked up playing music. Myself and my older brother played music. And for a time there, I actually would go out and play music with my dad and my uncle. And that was probably a favorite time for me because I got to go out and perform and at parties and all.
So you would say that like your parents were kind of a big influence on your love for music?
On my dad's side, yes. My mom's side, our joke, and my mom always said this, that my mom said, I play music, I just turn on the radio. And I can play whatever song, that's on the radio. So that was our big joke. So mom was not musically inclined, but my dad was.
That's nice. Who are your grandparents on your mom's side, and could you tell me a little bit about them?
Okay, so on my mom's side, my grandpa was Manuel Paiva, and my grandma was Eliza Paiva. So what was interesting about them is that during World War II, they lived in Hana. So my mom lived in Hana when she was 10 years old. My grandma was the cook in the Hana hospital, and my grandfather was the mail carrier.
Wow.
And so even after they came out of Hana, my grandfather, and actually we found pictures of his father before him, that they were all mail carriers. Not mailmen, mail carriers. So they would take the bulk mail from post office to post office. So he traveled in the road from here, Honoapi Ilani Highway now, the road from here to Lahaina, never used to be paved.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was an old rocky road, he was driving that road to take the mail to Lahaina.
Wow. Could you tell me about your grandparents on your dad's side?
So my grandparents on my dad's side, I didn't know them that well. My grandfather on my dad's side passed away when I was really young. But the stories I was told was that he actually worked at the mill, the sugar mill,
Mm-hmm.
and he worked his way up to being the engineer on the train. So back in those days, the trains would go to Haiku and to the Paia mill, and then down to the harbor, where they would take the cane and transfer the cane. So he was the engineer on the train. And the train not only did the cane, but it transported people. So my dad would say sometimes they would catch the train to come into town, which is into what's Kapolui. So he was worked his way to be the engineer on the train. His name was Manuel, but they would call him Manoloa.
Wow.
The Hawaiian name for Manuel is Manoloa. My grandma, her name was Inocencia. Her maiden name was Souza. And she, what I was told, had a beautiful voice. She had a soprano voice. And when I was young, I actually had a chance to hear her sing a little bit. She was a bit older by then.
Mm-hmm.
But I was told that she used to do Sunday school at Holy Rosary Church.
Could you tell me what you know about your great-grandparents?
Well, I don't, other than what I've been able to learn doing genealogy research, I don't know them because they were all passed away by the time I came around.
Okay. Well, I know you have siblings, but could you tell me about your two brothers?
So I'm in the middle. So I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. And basically that was hell for me. Because I was the only girl in the house, I was expected to do all the cleaning, all that stuff. My brothers got to go out and play and go out, so that was always the difficult thing. My older brother is about a year older than I am. My younger brother is 5 years younger than I am. So my older brother and I used to fight like cats and dogs when we were young, but we're very close now. My younger brother has always been the younger brother. He's always been the baby. He always got spoiled, but we've always looked out for him.
Could you tell me about where you grew up?
Yes, so we originally, well, as I've learned, so when we were toddlers, probably like 1 or 2 years old, we actually lived with my dad's parents for a little bit. And then we moved into Wailuku. So we lived in Wailuku for quite a while, right down the street from the O'Oka supermarket. We lived there for a while until my parents bought this house, and then we moved to Kahului.
Do you have any favorite memories from the different places that you grew?
Well, again, when we were first toddlers and living with my grandparents, I have barely any memory of that, other than I've seen some pictures. And they had a very large plantation house, a really large plantation house. And I had a picture of us riding one of those little pump little train thingies through the living room. That's about the only memory, that I have there, other than visiting that house when I was older, and like I said, it was a huge house. As far as Wailuku, and we lived there for quite a while. What I remembered about Wailuku was that it rained all the time, and I loved it. I loved the pitter patter of the raindrops. We had trees next to us. We had big mango trees next to us, so we could climb the mango trees. We had a drainage river, so that was the irrigation river, take the water to the different sugar fields, and that used to have crayfish in it, and so we used to go hunt for crayfish down in the water. So that's kind of my favorite memories. My least favorite memories is the fact that because we were near that water, there were a lot of toads, and so there were always toads in the backyard. And I hated toads. I still to this day hate toads. They would, my mom would send us out. We had a dog. The dog was in the wash house, which was separate from the house, and you had to go out down to the wash house to feed the dog. And if you went out a little bit too late, all the toads were on the sidewalk in between. And I remember screaming for my mom with the toads. And I think at one point when you're trying to chase them, like, shoo, go away, they actually jumped towards me, and that was it. I dropped everything and ran into the house.
So what was your childhood like growing up here?
Childhood was a little challenging because I was very shy, extremely shy. You would never know by talking to me now, but I was extremely shy. And I had really curly hair. So if you ever watch Shirley Temple, that's how curly my hair was. And my cousins would make fun of me all the time. So that was kind of a difficult thing to get past, having people make fun of you all the time. But eventually growing up, and thankfully for my singing, because my singing was the one thing I could focus on, and I got better at it. And as I got better at it, I was able to actually go out and do singing in a lot of places.
So would you say that singing kind of brought you out of your shell, your shy stage?
Singing helped. The other thing I think helped is I had an opportunity to run for Miss Maui, and that really helped me get out of the shell, as it were. You had to learn to speak, you had to learn to do interviews, you had to learn to walk, and we had some great people that were great mentors in that process. And so that was sort of a second piece that helped me open up. And I think the third piece that helped me was that in high school, I was in drama. Like, I can imagine a very, very shy person being in drama, right?
Mm-hmm.
But part of it was I knew that I had to do something to get rid of the shyness. I had to do something to help me to learn to talk to people, to be confident and all that. And drama was one of those ways. So the three different things, and singing and the Miss Maui pageant, and then drama in high school, really helped me.
Is there any like teachers or mentors that you remember that had like a significant impact on that?
I wouldn't say necessarily teachers in school, but in the Miss Maui program, there was a lady, Maureen Naganuma, and she was always supportive, always helpful. In fact, I still see her around on Maui, and I'm always happy to see her. So I think that. Secondly, when I was running for Miss Maui and my talent was going to be singing, I actually took voice lessons from Don Alton, and he was a very well-known voice teacher on Maui, and he really helped me out. In fact, he told me that I really didn't need training, that I had a natural voice, but he taught me technique, and so that made a big difference to me.
So when you were my age, what are the things that you did for fun?
I didn't have too much fun, I mean, it's kind of sad to say, but high school years were actually kind of difficult. Number one, being shy didn't help, and it's kind of growing up and being awkward and not really having good mentors to help you in that growing up process. I mean, I love my mom, love my dad, but my mom was very strict Portuguese style, which meant I couldn't do anything. So it was a clash between wanting to learn to be out there and to have confidence and speak and sing, and having your mom basically telling you your role is to get married, have babies, clean house, darn socks, and I was like, no, not doing that. So there was always this kind of a clash. In fact, when I ran for Miss Maui, I didn't tell my mom right away. I would be going to these rehearsals, and when I finally told my mom, she just had a cow. I mean, really. I mean, the first thing that came out of her mouth was, "You're gonna do what?" And I was mad at her. I didn't talk to her for like about a week, because I felt that I was trying to do something to get ahead, and she was trying to say, "What do you want to do that for?" Right? Eventually, thankfully, she opened up. People sometimes are not very open to change, but she finally opened up, and it opened up even more when she'd go to the grocery store, and there would be people coming up to her and saying, "Hey, I hear your daughter's running for Miss Maui." And then finally, my mom sort of dawned on, like, that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. That's a positive thing, and she did support me in the end. It just took her a while to kind of come around the circle.
So how has the place that you were raised in changed?
Well, I was raised in Wailuku and Kahului, pretty much, for most of my life. And as we have seen, there's just been more and more people, more and more development, more and more cars on the road, and and Maui has changed. Maui is not the quiet place we used to have. People are not as respectful as they used to be. And to me, that's sort of the biggest change. I like to say, you know, when I'm driving out on the road, is I try to practice aloha every day. You know, it's okay to let the person, you know, go inside. They're waiting at the stop sign. You gotta roll cars. You know, let them in. They're not gonna. You don't have to cut in front of them. You don't have to be the first one in line. You don't have to. And a lot of that's missing. A lot of people don't have that.
So, is there like any specific experiences that you're like, wow, like things have really changed? Like, anything you can remember?
Well, you know, when this house was built, right, all behind us was just sand. Mounds, sand dunes, mounds. In fact, there were cows. I remember when we were young at one point, you know, we got up and we looked outside in the backyard and we go, Mom, there's a cow in our backyard. And she's like, what? And I go, there's a cow in our backyard. You know, and we go out there and there used to be cattle in the back and somehow they would get loose and they would end up in our backyard. Or down the street where Maiwaena is. So Maiwaena wasn't there before, and the cows would end up on that area. And, you know, we'd hear the police calls and, you know, so-and-so is calling and there's like 5 cows on the road. And the policeman would go, what? 5 cows? You sure they're talking about Kahului? You know? And it's like, yeah, there were 5 cows. So as these places started to get built out and further, right, there's more people, more traffic. Kahului was considered, when they first developed Kahului, it was called Dream City.
Wow.
And the concept behind that Dream City was that was going to be the opportunity for a lot of families to own their own homes. So how we got this property was because A and B owned the land. A and B also owned the sugar mill. And my grandfather worked for the sugar mill. So my grandmother had the opportunity to get a lot in the increments in the subdivision. And so she was able to take the lot and then give it to my dad.
Wow.
That's how we're here.
Could you tell me about the schools you've attended?
Oh my goodness, yes. So we started off at St. Anthony School. We lived in Wailuku, so we went to St. Anthony School. And I went to St. Anthony School up until the 6th grade. And then I went to Iao School, the 7th grade. And then we moved to Kahului, so I went to Lehikai School for the 8th grade. And then I went to Baldwin High School for high school.
So Lehikai was a middle school?
Lehikai School, 8th grade. At that time Lehikai was an elementary school back then, so it was from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade.
So that's what elementary school was considered? There's no like middle school?
Yeah, there wasn't any middle school. It was elementary schools. So now that you have middle schools, that shows you the growth of the population. That there's so many kids now, so you have to create a middle school. So 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is far different from 1 through 5th grade.
Did you go to any schools after high school?
Well, yeah. So after high school, I went to what was then Maui Community College, and I got a degree in secretarial science. Not that that's what I wanted, but everybody told me that, oh, you want to grow up and you want to be a secretary. And this was now the middle 70s, and middle 70s was the feminist movement, you know, and I knew I didn't want to be a secretary. I knew that, you know, people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I knew I did not want to be a secretary. But my mom wouldn't fill out the FAFSA form, F-A-F-S-A, the FAFSA form, and they couldn't afford to send me to a 4-year college. So I went to Maui Community College, I got myself a degree, and I started working. But later on, as I was working and I could save some money, I went back to the college. I wanted to get a 4-year degree. But they told me that I had to go back to the lower level and almost restart because I didn't have enough transfer credits. So I had to spend about 2 years at the lower level to get my 100 plus courses, to then go into what was the West Oahu College. They had a Maui section of it, so I could get my bachelor's degree through the West Oahu program. And then 3 years later, there was an opportunity to go for a master's, an MBA, and they had a Maui continue. So they called it the Neighbor Island MBA program, or we called it the NIMBA. And that NIMBA program was all the neighbor islands was in this cohort. And it was done electronically from Manoa. And then they had some live teachers. And for some of us, because we were all working, and sometimes we would have to go to a neighbor island for work, and we had to stay over, we could go to that site and continue our classes. So I had an opportunity once where I had to go to Hawaii Island, Big Island, for work, and I had to stay overnight. So I was able to go to the NIMBA class that was on Hawaii Island. And so that was great because it gave us an opportunity to actually, besides seeing our cohorts, our neighbor island cohorts on the screen, we actually got to meet them in person.
Wow. So with your degrees, what jobs and careers did you take up over time?
So, so when I first got out of the first college with my secretarial degree, I actually worked for an insurance company. And I actually had a good time there. I was working as a clerk, but I learned a lot of things, and we had some really good insurance agents there. One insurance agent in particular was involved with the JC movement, which is a training movement, and I used to help him on some of his write-ups, typing. And it was so interesting. They said they were going to start off a women's JC movement, and I was actually one of the original women's JCettes back then that started. Well, once that started and you're out in the community and you're doing different things, you're learning things, you're getting more experience, I started to look for something else to do. And so my second job is I worked at McDonald's, not flipping burgers, but I was a community rep. So in that I would be out in the community doing programs in the schools. We'd have these little certificates for like a free burger or free fries or something like that, and we would go into schools and have that as incentives for reading. So we'd work with some of the teachers and say, oh, you have the reading program, we give you some of these certificates the kids can use. And I used to fly to Oahu a lot. We had a lot of meetings there. So I actually learned to drive on Oahu by knowing where all the McDonald's was on Oahu.
Wow.
You know, I mean, that's an interesting way, but hey, that's how I learned to drive on Oahu. You know, so we had to go, okay, what McDonald's is closer to that? Oh, okay, that one there. Okay, I know how to get there. Then from there, you know how to get someplace else. So I was with that job for a little bit, and for about three and a half years or so, and I loved it. I really loved that job. Got to meet a lot of people in the community, get involved in a lot of activities. I was involved with the JC's organization at that time. We used to have the JC Carnival. We used to do all those activities, but I had a boss who hated me, and she didn't like the fact that I was out in the community. And I would say, but my job is to be out in the community, so isn't that a good thing that I'm involved with all these community activities? Well, she hated me, and she made my life, you know, difficult. And so at some point I left because it was better to leave than to get into an argument or do something you don't want to do. I actually went with the JCs. I had a chance to go to San Antonio, Texas for a conference. It was just for about a week, but even during that time, it was a great experience being someplace different, seeing different people, seeing what was going on, out there. When I came back from that, they were taking applications for the Maui Tropical Plantation. It was going to be opening up. And I had applied for a position, and they called me for an interview. And what was interesting was that a bunch of us who knew each other in different things had all applied for the tropical plantation. And a good friend of mine applied for the same position I applied for. And I thought, well, I know she's going to get a job. She's a former Miss Hawaii. She's, going to get that job. Well, she did get the job, but she saw my interview, my application, and she called me up. She says, I want to hire you as my assistant. And so I worked at the tropical plantation, and we had a great group of people there. I mean, it was literally handpicked, and all of us performed. All of us either played music or danced hula, and we would do shows up at the plantation, and then we would go out on the road, as it were. We would go to different hotels and condos or whatever, and give out our brochures and do a little, song and dance kind of thing. And that was fun, being able to get out there and do that. And we were, we got to be so popular. We were invited to perform at different events and all that. So, got through that. I think I worked there for several years. And then I had to step away from that. And then I got a job at Intercontinental Hotel, which is now I think it's the Marriott, Wailea Marriott, I believe. So I worked there for several years. And one of the great things and fun things I had there was they would have these celebrity tennis tournaments. And it was a big thing. It was like raise money for the John Wayne cancer or whatever. And all these celebrities from Hollywood would be coming in. Wow. And then we'd have to check them in, and we'd have to walk them to, show them where their room is, and then we'd see them on the, at the hotel for like about a week, period. And it's like, oh, I know that person. Oh, I know, Barbara Eden, I Dream of Jeannie. I never knew she was that short, and so, these people that we grew up watching on TV were there, and that was so exciting to see that, and then I left there, and I got a job with the Maui Philharmonic Society. It was a nonprofit, a very small nonprofit group, and I was there for a few years, and I had a great boss. His name was Tom Wyan, and he really helped me out. He actually sent me to a training class for grants, to learn how to write grants. And he said, you may never need this for this organization, but I know you're going to need this when you move on. And this is great to learn. And it was a great class to learn, because I was there for, again, a couple of years, and the nonprofit wasn't doing so well. And I got hired at Halimaha'olu. And I was there for 12 years. And at Halimaha'olu, I wrote a lot of grants. So I wrote over $20 million in grants over a 9-year period. And those grants helped to build elderly housing. So I got the money for our Makawao project, our project right down here in Kahului, the project in Lahaina. I actually got the money for that, Halimaha'olu E'onu, which unfortunately was devastated by the fire. But when I did that, that was the first in the nation combination of 2 federal programs, HUD and USDA. And I had to do a lot of research and a lot of discussions with the people on both sides, and be able to put those 2 grants together to make that. So learning how to write grants was a great thing, because I was able to do that and really make a difference. And that's really where I made a difference. And from there, where did I go from there? I know I've had a lot of jobs, unfortunately, good and bad. You learn things. You have more experiences from there. I know I left there. I was working for a short time in a property management company, and then from there I got hired at Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and I was the Maui District supervisor. So all of Maui was my place to oversee for Hawaiian Homelands. And I was the only female district supervisor in the state. All the rest were all men, right? So, and I had a really good boss there. So I've been lucky along the ways to have some good, been some bad bosses, but there've been some good bosses. And, you know, I had a good boss there. He really worked with me and helped me. He never made life easy for me, but he would point me in the right direction. Take care of things. One of the, I think one of the great things about my time there was that I'm not Hawaiian. Mm-hmm. And, but a lot of people liked me and respected me, and they still do. In fact, they still call me up to help them with things to do with Hawaiian Homelands. But they knew that I had no nepotism. I had no family. I wasn't doing any favoritism for my families. Everything I did was to help people out, you know, and I'd be doing a lot of education. We'd have leases coming up, and they would say, you have to apply. And they would say, well, you know, I'm not going to apply because I'm not going to have a chance at that. And I says, but how do you know? You know, the whole thing with that was, how do you know? I said, tell them you're interested, get on that subset list for that particular project or program that they're going to have. And I said, wait until the day that they're actually pulling those names for those leases. And if they call your name, say yes. You go up there, you say, yes, I'm interested. And then you go and you talk to your family after that to decide, is this what we want to do or not want to do? But if you cut yourself before it even starts, you'll never know if you had that chance. But all you're going to do is you're going to complain, I've been on the list for so many years and never get picked, whatever, but you had a chance. And so a lot of people looked at that and they go, well, that makes logical sense. And they did that. And they ended up their name being called, and they could make a decision at that point as to, yeah, we've got what we need, we can go forward. They got their homestead, they got their land, they got their house, you know? Mm-hmm. And they said, gosh, you know, if we had not listened to you, we would have gotten nothing. So that was one of the things that I think that I was able to do, to help a lot of people. And I think the other thing I did was help a lot of people with their genealogy. So you have to have 50% to get on the list, and trying to track the documents and following, you know, I call it a scorecard. And a lot of times I would see places and I say, look, if you can get this document, and if it says what we think it should say, I think we'll be okay. And they would say, oh, I know my auntie has that document. Right? Then they know exactly what they're looking for. Or sometimes I would be able to see where this person's genealogy kind of hooks up with this person's genealogy. Well, you can't just share the information, but you can at least talk to the person and say, hey, you know, I have a person whose genealogy actually connects with yours way back, and you have the documents. You know, would you be willing to share it with this person? You know, and then you'd have to give them the name, and then they go talk story, and then if they say, yeah, okay, give us the authorization, we can pull that information, and then that person gets on the wait list, because we were able to find that 50%, you know. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the things, and I had, it got to the point where I was having people call me from other islands, and they would say, I heard that you're the one who helped people. You know, we've been working on this for a long time, and they keep telling us, no, you don't qualify, you don't qualify, you don't qualify. And I say, well, you know, I'm not a magician, but if we have the documents and we sit down and we look at it, we can try to figure out if there is something missing and where that is. And they would come in and we would sit down and we would go through these documents, you know, and put in our piece of paper and do our calculations. And we go and I says, no, according to your documents, you have enough, you know. Then they would of course be upset, right? Because the people at their office wouldn't help them out. I says, well, you know, I'm seeing here everything you have. I've written all this stuff out. In fact, you could type it all out, you know, and then print it out for them and say, here, take this. And then they would go back and say, look, so-and-so looked at it. They say, guess what? Finally, they get on the list. Where they could have probably been on the list 10 years before or 20 years before, but people kept telling them no, no, no. And now you have somebody, you know, I'm here to help you. We can help you. If you can get on, get on. So I think I had a lot of fun there. I really enjoyed my time there. After that, I was asked to become the Director of Housing and Human Concerns for the County of Maui. I probably should not have taken that job. I was probably a little naive, but I thought, well, I'm taking a step up. Maybe I can help more people. Mm-hmm. But my naivety was, it's a political arena, and I'm not into politics. And so I didn't do as well there. And I was actually asked to leave. And I was shocked. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't violate any laws. I didn't do anything to anybody. But there were people who didn't like me, and they just didn't want me to be at that point. So, you know, so I was out, and I was out actually for a bit there, looking for work, and had to take some odd jobs in between to survive, to take on. I remember taking a job at Macy's during their holiday season, and I worked in receiving in the back. I didn't want to work out in front, in the back. It was really hard work. I mean, I built my muscles. Never knew I had muscles, but I built the muscles, and I was there for a couple of years until I kind of got my footing back on, and then I eventually ended up with my job now, which is public housing, Hawaii Public Housing Authority. So I oversee Maui and Molokai, and I've been there for a little over 7 years now.
So
hopefully that's my last job.
So, are you married?
No, I'm not.
Do you? I don't know how the question is, but like, how do you enjoy the not married life?
Well, so you know, so I used to always have this little joke about, you know, it's not to say that I never wanted to be married. I just never really found the person that would respect me for who I am, you know, and be open to me having a career, because we're still, again, where men think that you should only be home to darn socks, cook for me, and wash the clothes and stuff like that. And some men are afraid of professional women, being out there, having a career, being able to do stuff. So I never really, you know, found the person that would support that. And I never felt that I could have children. And I was actually kind of right, because I actually had a problem with my back that would have made it difficult to have children. But I had your mom as my pseudo daughter, right? And you know, and so to take care of the kids and to take care of you guys as my pseudo grandchildren, right, in the same line, which is to me the greatest part, right? I can help you guys out. I'm there for you guys, watch you guys whenever you guys have to be watched, anything like that. But the funny part is, but when we're done, we're going home to mom and dad. You know, but you know, I mean, it's sad in a sense, but I understood. I understood the why. So I accept the why, and I move forward. Be there for who I can be there for.
So now, What do you enjoy doing for fun?
Oh my goodness. Well, you know, there was a time, well, I've always been involved in sports from when I was a kid. We were always running around doing something. I had a chance to play softball for a while, but not in high school because it wasn't a high school sport until after I graduated. So your Mama Judy had a chance to play in the MIL for softball, but I had to play in the women's league, the adult league. So I got to play for 10 years. There was about 4-5 years of fast pitch, and then the remainder was slow pitch. So I was always kind of involved in some kind of sport, hiking or whatever. I took up golf at one point because people kept bugging me to play golf, and I never thought of it. My image of golf, because I had some uncles who played, were that there was these overweight men with cigars, and I just could not see myself as that. But I took a class, just to take a class, just to see what it was all about, and I enjoyed it. It was a workout. And the teacher said, the teacher asked me, she said, well, how long have you been golfing? And I looked at her and I said, I've never golfed. She said, well, you have a natural swing. And I said, well, it must be my softball. And I thought, well, okay, I can take golf, And so I played golf for a while. I haven't played it for several years now, but it's something that I can do. And other than that, it's pretty much walking and watching sports. I can't get involved in too many other sports. As you remember, I broke my rib cage, my rib, trying to go for a ball. So obviously I've got to watch those kinds of sports. So safely I can walk.
So what are some important things in your life that you've witnessed or experienced that really stuck with you?
Well, it's probably the most recent, and it's the Lahaina fire. Actually, about a month ago, 2 months ago, I actually had a chance to go and see our property. So for public housing, we lost 2 properties in Lahaina, and we had to go with the FEMA people to our sites to do the specific. And it was the first time that I had been there since the fire. And so for me, and I'm a real visual type of person, so and I have a photographic memory. So as I stood there and looked at what was no longer there, all these memories come back. Well, I remember that being there, and I remember that being there, and I remember this and this, and so to see what was left was, I wasn't emotional. I can compartmentalize that, but it was just so different, just so. But then I also looked at, we had some of the trees on the property. So at one of our properties, we had 2 mountain apple trees. And these mountain apples in Lahaina are the best mountain apples possible. Okay? And so this one tree that was like, oh my God, I hope I don't lose this tree. I actually saw a little bit of green. Now, I don't know if it's going to survive. Maybe with all this rain, it'll survive, but I saw a little bit of green. And I thought, well, that's great. But I also thought, I don't know how long it's going to be before we're actually back here to do anything. But that was a real eye opener. That was, for me, probably the thing that had the most impact. Because we knew about the fires. We saw all the pictures. I spent a week, that whole week, searching for our families, going through every possible method, and having all this stress, wanting to, are they okay? Where are they? so we can, you know, help them, but actually seeing what was left. And at one of our properties, we were just going through a renovation. Right? And some of the buildings we lost were buildings that had been renovated. And we looked at that and went, oh, well, you know,
Yeah.
that was brand new. Oh, it's not there anymore. Okay. But hopefully it'll all get, you know, rebuilt, all brand spanking new, and we'll be able to help families again.
So, who do you, like? Is there a specific person that had the biggest influence on your life, and why? Or maybe people?
You know, I always have to kind of go back to, again, the people who were doing the Miss Maui back then. And some of those people who were doing the Miss Maui back then actually went on to do the Miss Hawaii. And so there was really this great connection. But the method that they use to help us to develop, to grow, has always been with me. And I think that was the biggest impact on me, because I've carried that forward. I've trained girls for pageants, and I've used the same methodology to help train those girls.
Okay. And last question, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, I would like to be remembered for all that I've given. I've been involved with the community a lot, doing a lot of different things, helping a lot of people, help them get ahead, you know, and the realization is, I know I'm not going to be here forever. I already know that. You know, if I'm here 20 years from now, it'll be, you know, a real shocker, right? So I'm already on this downward spiral. And so the whole important thing is to make sure to help people move them forward. It's not the crab in the bucket. I'm not the crab in the bucket to pull people down, you know, because I don't want them to go ahead. We have to help people to get ahead. And I hope that that's what I'm remembered for, helping people to get ahead, to have an opportunity to learn something, to take that chance so that you can, you know, do well for yourself and for your family.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no problem. Love you.